everyone, welcome back. I'm Cole Phillips, author of The Adventure of the Twisted Truths and host of the Book and Dagger. Today we're concluding our journey through The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. I have really enjoyed this journey, and I hope you guys have as well. We're going to be reading the last chapter in The Hobbit, chapter 19, The Last Stage. It was on May the 1st that Gandalf and Bilbo come back at last to the brink of the Valley of Rivendell, where stood the last homely house. Again it was evening, their ponies were tired, especially the one that carried the baggage. They all felt the need to rest. As they ride down the steep path, Bilbo heard the elves still singing in the trees, as if they had not stopped since he left. As soon as the riders came down into the lower glades of the wood, they burst into song of much the same kind as before. So they sing their song, and Bilbo, of course, is happy to be in Rivendell. Then the elves of the valley came out and greeted them, and led them across the water to the house of Elrond once more. There a warm welcome was made for them. There were many eager ears that evening to hear the tale of their adventures. Gandalf it was who spoke, for Bilbo had fallen quiet and drowsy. Most of the tale he knew, for he had been in it, and had himself told much of it to the wizard on their homeward way or in the house of Beorn, but every now and again he would open one eye and listen when a part of the story which he did not know yet came in. It was this way that he learned that where Gandalf had been to. If you remember, Gandalf disappeared right before the dwarves came into Mirkwood because he had that important business he said he had to attend to. He finds out that Gandalf had been to a great council of the White Wizards, masters of lore and good magic, and that they had at last driven the necromancer from his dark hold in the south of Mirkwood. Ere long now, Gandalf was saying, the forest will grow somewhat more wholesome. The north will be freed from that horror for many long years, I hope. Yet I wish you were banished from the world. It would be well indeed, said Elrond, but I fear that will not come about in this age of the world, or for many after. When the tale of their journeying was told, there were other tales, and yet more tales, tales of long ago, and tales of new things, and tales of no time at all, till Bilbo's head fell forward on his chest, and he snored comfortably in a corner. Anyway, he wakes up to hear elves singing once again, and he says, well, merry people, looking out his window, what time by the moon is this? Your lullaby would waken a drunken goblin, yet I thank you. And your snores would waken a stone dragon, yet we thank you, they answered with laughter. It is drawing towards dawn, and you have slept now since the night's beginning. Tomorrow, perhaps, you'll be cured of weariness. A little sleep does a great cure in the house of Elrond, said he, but I will take all the cure I can get. A good second night, fair friends. And with that, he went back to bed and slept till the morning. Anyway, he enjoys being in Elrond's house, but even Elrond's house cannot keep him from longing for his own home. So after a week, therefore, he said farewell to Elrond, and giving him such small gifts as he would accept, he rode away with Gandalf. Even as they left the valley, the sky darkened in the west before them, and wind and rain came up to meet them. And so they're journeying along, and as they're journeying along, they pass by lots of places on their adventure. They pass by the place where they met Tom and Bert and Bill, the trolls. And not far away from the road, they found the gold of the trolls, which they had buried a long time ago, still hidden and untouched. I have enough to last me my time, said Bilbo when they dug it up. You had better take this, Gandalf. I dare say you can find a use for it. Indeed, I can, said the wizard, but share and share alike. You may find you have more needs than you expect. So they take all the bags and put gold and put it in bags and slung them on the ponies, who were not at all pleased about it. As they're going along, Bilbo composes a song, which is the first song Bilbo has ever composed. And if you read Lord of the Rings, you know he goes on to write more songs and like poems and stuff. It's the first song he ever composed, and it's the song "Roads Go Ever On." And basically, eventually, they reach Hobbit Town as they're getting back in there. As they cross the bridge and pass by the mill by the river, and came right back to Bilbo's own door. As they do that, Bilbo cries out, "Bless me, what's going on?" There was a great commotion, and people of all sorts, respectable and unrespectable, were thick round the door, and many were going in and out, not even wiping their feet on the mat, as Bilbo noticed with great annoyance. If he was surprised, they were more surprised still. He had arrived back in the middle of an auction. There was a large notice in black and red hung on the gate saying that on June the 22nd, Messrs. Grubb, and Burrowses would sell by auction the effects of the late Bilbo Baggins, Esquire, of Bag End, Underhill, Hobbiton. Sale to commence at 10 o'clock sharp. It was now nearly lunchtime, and most of the things had already been sold for various prices, from next to nothing to old songs, as is not unusual at auctions. Bilbo's cousins, the Saxville Bagginses, were in fact busy measuring his rooms to see if their own furniture would fit. In short, Bilbo was presumed dead, and not everybody that said so was sorry to find the presumption wrong. The return of Mr. Bilbo Baggins created quite a disturbance, both under the hill and over the hill, and across the water. It was a great deal more than a 9 days' wonder. The legal bother, indeed, lasted for years. It was quite a long time before Mr. Baggins was in fact admitted to be alive again. The people who had got specially good bargains with the sale took a deal of convincing, and in the end, to save time, Bilbo had to buy back quite a lot of his own furniture. Most of his silver spoons mysteriously disappeared and were never accounted for. Port 4. Personally, he suspected the sacks were Baggins's. On their side, they never admitted that the returned Baggins was genuine, and they were not on friendly terms with Bilbo ever after. They really had wanted to live in his nice hobbit hole so very much. Anyway, Bilbo finds out he's not only lost his spoons, he's lost his reputation. It's true that forever after he remained an elf friend and had the honor of dwarves, wizards, and such folk as ever passed that way, but he was no longer quite respectable among the hobbits. Uh, all the hobbits in the neighborhood basically considered him to be queer, except for his nieces and nephews on the Took side, but even they were not encouraged in their friendship by their elders. But he actually did not mind that. He was quite content, and the sound of the kettle on his hearth was ever more musical than it had ever been in the days before the unexpected party. His sword he hung over the mantelpiece. His coat of mail was arranged on a stand in the hall until he lent it to a museum. His gold and silver was largely spent in presents, both useful and extravagant, which to a certain extent accounts for the affection of his nephews and his nieces. His magic ring he kept a great secret, for he chiefly used it when unpleasant callers came. He took to writing poetry and visiting the elves, and though many shook their heads and touched their foreheads and said, "Poor old Baggins," and though few believed any of his tales, he remained very happy to the end of his days, and they were extraordinarily long. Anyway, one day, some years later, he's sitting in his study writing his memoirs, which he's thinking of calling There and Back Again, a Hobbit's holiday, when there was a ring at the door, and it was Gandalf and a dwarf, and the dwarf was actually Balin. Come in," said said Bilbo, and soon they were settled in chairs by the fire. If Balin noticed that Mr. Baggins' waistcoat was more extensive and had real gold buttons, Bilbo also noticed that Balin's beard was several inches longer, and his jeweled belt was of great magnificence. Of course, they fell to talking of times together, and Bilbo asked how things are going. And a bard has rebuilt Dale and become king, and the master of the lake town is a greedy, so he went and took most of the gold that he got, but he got dragon sickness and ran off and eventually died in the wilderness. The lake town was refounded and more prosperous than ever, and basically balances the new master of the lake town is a wiser kind and very popular, for of course he gets most of the credit for the present prosperity. They are making songs which say that in his day the rivers run with gold. Then the prophecies of the old songs have turned out to be true after a fashion, said Bilbo. Of course, said Gandalf, and why should they not prove true? Surely you don't disbelieve the prophecies because you had a hand in bringing them about yourself. You don't really suppose, do you, that all your adventures and escapes were managed by mere luck, just for your sole benefit? You are a very fine person, Mr. Baggins, and I am very fond of you, but you are only quite a little fellow in the wide world after all. Thank goodness, said Bilbo, laughing, and handed him the tobacco jar. That is the end of J.R.R. Tolkien's The Hobbit. I hope you guys enjoyed our read-along, and be on the lookout for more new content coming soon.